We go from dealing with a robot to a rat king. Oh boy, this one was not pretty. Not pretty indeed. This is Mega Man NG and I welcome you guys to another TMNT 2012 Season 2 episode review. Today we're going to be talking about the episode 12 of Rats and Men. A play on Of Mice and Men. Touché. So anyway, here's the deal. I'll provide a summary as well as some of the main points that I liked. But before I begin, I do want to say that next week there will be only one episode review. Why? Because the next episode is going to be a two-parter. Yeah, I'm just saying. Let's get underway. April, Casey, and Irma are walking down the street when they find a stray cat. But a rat comes in after April and Casey leave to kidnap Irma. Meanwhile, Splinter spars with the turtles, doing so without his sight. But then he feels something strange. It only means one thing. The Rat King has returned. His sights are still set on him. The mind control is proof. When the turtles find out, his plan is soon revealed. New York is in danger. Can Splinter and the turtles be able to stop the Rat King and end his plans once and for all? Yep, the Rat King has returned once more, and he goes after Splinter on a more personal level. Though it's only be done so that way he can be able to execute his real plan. To make it worse, he has a plan to take control of a city with giant mutated rats. This is going straight into horror movie territory right there. Mutated rats? That's something you don't see every day. And the fact that the turtles have to contend with the Rat King and his army only makes things a bit more difficult. Casey does have a fear of rats, and I like how it ties well into continuity. It holds him back a bit, but he tries his hardest to conquer his fear. In a later scene when Casey and Irma get captured, Casey deepens his voice not to raise any suspicions. It reminded me of the 87 Casey when he was voiced roughly and stuff like that. We get our first appearance of the Ice Cream Kitty. You know the Ice Cream Kitty, that Mikey's personal pet? Well, with this appearance, his creation came about as a complete and utter accident. Yeah, what a way to mess around with ice cream and mutagen, and a stray cat of all things. Donnie is not too pleased. Not too pleased at all eventually when he finds out. Though, how Mikey handles the ice cream cat is just weird and yet hilarious at the same time. I know it for a fact it does. But yeah, it just happened out of the blue. Like I already mentioned already, Donnie's not too pleased. But if you want to know something, how Mikey able to handle the ice cream kitty, you know that little case that Mikey has so that way he can launch it out? The colors red and white reminds me of a Pokeball. And how Mikey throws it I wouldn't be surprised if he said, "Ice cream kitty, I choose you." But instead he does launch ice cream kitty away, and it ended up helping him out big time. So anyway, the plot is pretty much twofold. On one side, you have the turtles stopping the Rat King's army on the surface, having to deal with the mutated rats and all that. But on the other side, Splinter has to confront the Rat King deep within his mind. The mind control still lingers, and it does happen at some points, but if it wasn't for Mikey and Ice Cream Kitty, who knows what could have happened. The visual department really delivers here, not to mention the rainy atmosphere during the whole mutated rat chase thing really adds it in terms of intensity, and it eventually culminates in a battle between good and evil. The Turtles, April, and Splinter against the Rat King in a battle to save the city. It wasn't really much of a battle, but does it really matter? No, it was intense, action-packed, and just the way I wanted it. It is just awesome. I really mean it. There were so many favorite moments, I could explain it, but it would take me all day, but I'll just list two. The Rat King's plans coming to fruition. Although, speaking of which, well, the Rat King pretty much had his plan of turning humans into rat people by means of a mutagenic syringe. And the fact that it wasn't perfected could really spell disaster for the human race. Thankfully, it never happened because April was able to get them out of there. I'm relieved for it. But as much as I liked about this episode a lot, there is one thing that really bums me out. This episode also marks the last appearance of the Rat King, as we learn of his inevitable fate. This happened at the very end of the episode where Splinter and the Rat King have one final showdown. And it's a pretty intense final showdown as well. It starts off with the Rat King being able to avoid most of Splinter's attacks. And it really didn't help that, yeah, the Rat King is pretty much blind. He doesn't need to see. He pretty much has his rat Aristotle use it for him. But when Aristotle goes down, well, he decides to go into Splinter's mind. But that doesn't work. So Splinter decides to defeat him in the only way possible, without his sight. And seeing him beat the Rat King was just amazing. It really shows how awesome Splinter is as a character, and how much we all like him. And yeah, if you guys remember when I did my review of Deep Darkest Plight, which was in Season 4, we actually do know what happens to the Rat King. The Rat King is gone. And it's a shame, too, because the Rat King would have been a serious threat down the line had he survived. Because I'll be honest, I really like the Rat King as a character because I think he would be a personal rival for Splinter. Splinter and the Turtles. And had he stayed around, he would have been a very devastating force to be reckoned with. Although I could be wrong about that. The Rat King was a pretty interesting villain, and various incarnations have him be like either a villain or an anti-hero. I don't really know for sure, but all I do know is that sadly we're never going to see him again. But overall, the episode was really awesome and I loved it big time. My rating for it will be in the description below, but here's what I am going to say. Next week, there will be only one episode review at 8 p.m. Why? Because the next episodes is a two-parter. That's right, when I do two-parters, I make it one big video so that way I can provide my thoughts on both parts instead of having them part individually. The reason why I was like that with Requiem and Owari is because they'd aired Requiem first, then the series finale that came after it. Had it been like a 1-hour special, I would have done the exact same thing. But you guys know me, I always get it done, right? So anyway, yeah, look forward to that review next week as I review The Manhattan Project, and it does not have anything to do with The Secret Project of 1945 or the third TMNT NES game. I had to say it. Trust me, when I get to that review, I will do it. So anyway, that is pretty much it for this episode of review. It's not much. This is what I get for doing this at 2:30 in the morning. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to hit the like button. It really does mean a lot to me, and I will see you guys next week with one review as I provide my thoughts on episodes 13 and 14. The Manhattan Project, or Wormquake as it's called. This is Mega Man NJ signing off. Peace out. Booyakasha!